Hi, how are you? My name is Dr. India White, and I'm thrilled to come in here to talk to you today about Stop Surviving and Start Thriving Through Grit. I had the honor to be a speaker on the Resilient Beyond Measure conference, and you can join them on the Facebook page. There's about 1,000 of us in there where we talk about resilience. And so I want to come on and give a clear, clean cut presentation of what I spoke with everyone about. So I'm going to share my screen with you. So I'm sharing with you guys my screen, Stop Surviving, Start Thriving Through Grit. My name is Dr. India White. I'm a TEDx speaker. I'm an author, a national education consultant. And so I want to talk with you a little bit about what that looks like. And so a little bit about me. Yes, I was a Gators 40 Under 40. I was a math textbook author for Savvis Learning and some other companies. I'm a mom of high schoolers and middle schoolers, and a former assistant principal of a Title I school. I was a math coach, 612 math coach for a turnaround school, and 2-time teacher of the year, 2 different districts. And so I speak to you not only from an educator lens, but from a leadership lens. And so with that said, I want to talk a little bit about women and burnout. Women do experience significantly higher rates of burnout than men, with recent data showing that 55% of women report burnout compared to about 42% of men in an AMA survey. We also found that in McKinsey Lehman's 2025 report, they had 60% of senior women that were feeling frequently burned out, which is the highest in 5 years. And it was driven by factors like gender bias, unequal caregiving loads, lack of support, leading too many to consider leaving the workforce. And this is really sad because I think many of us can recognize that we service in different roles. Some of us are moms, some of us are, authors, leaders in other compartments in life. And so we're feeling like we're stretching ourselves thin. And so I can see how many women are feeling this way. And so what do you do when you're what do you do when you're at the brink of burnout? So 4 reasons why leaders need grit. 1, they have to be able to navigate their challenges through strength. Grit equips women and leaders to persevere through adversity, uncertainty, and resistance without giving up. Again, it helps leaders and women to persevere through adversity, uncertainty, and resistance without giving up. Also, it leads with confidence and clarity because grit strengthens inner confidence and it enables leaders to trust their own voice, making bold decisions and leading authentically. Okay. Another thing is that grit is great for sustaining growth without burnout because it helps leaders to stay focused, balanced, and committed to that long-term success. This is not a sprint. This is more like a marathon, and you want to make sure that you have the that you need to make it through. And since we all have grit, this is a great thing to build because it's a trait that you're going to need for success no matter what. Another thing is that grit, it actually turns visions into results. So grit actually bridges the gap between goals and outcomes by combining persistence, discipline, and purposeful action. Since we're starting this year and we're wanting to finish strong, it's imperative that we start right. And one of the first things we have to do is check ourselves, and we have to check our levels of grit and what that looks like for us. So what is grit? Grit is a main factor of success in first-generation scholars. We found in our study that it was the key determinant factor for success of first-generation students at the University of Florida. Dr. Angela Duckworth found in her studies that she's a psychologist. She found in her studies the same thing, that grit was it. So grit is simply having great resilience in time. That is a framework that or an acronym that I shared with everybody on the TED stage. And it is comprised of a beautiful framework that has 4 pillars, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But with that said, grit does support leaders during moments of discouragement. We found that when you couple grit with these other factors here, mentors, having a sense of belonging, organization, talent, wealth, and other accommodations that are, pertaining to the success of your business or your personal growth, we found that grit is it. Grit really helps to bring all of these other factors alive. It's like a cement that keeps everything together. And so with that said, I do have the grit assessment here, but you can visit it on my website, www.india-white.com, and then look down to see where it says grit assessment for leaders. You will be able to find it there. And there's a picture of my brand newly launched book, Thriving with grit. And so with that said, I do want you to take a moment, take the grit assessment. Let me know what that looks like for you. In the grit assessment, there are the 4 components that make up the framework, which I've spoken about for you guys. And you're able to really measure your levels. And I can tell you that out of those 4 components of growth mindset, resilience, self-efficacy, and time management, my weakest was actually time management and also self-efficacy. And I think that's because, of some things that I had to overcome from my, prior days and from my humble beginnings. It's not easy. And, I talk on many stages about my humble beginnings of overcoming homelessness, going from homeless shelter to a college dorm overnight, beyond my control, then trying to figure out how to juggle that, how to juggle being a mother, how to juggle being an educator, how to juggle being an assistant principal, how to juggle being an entrepreneur, author, all these different things. And sometimes that self-efficacy piece can creep in and those negative thoughts can trickle in. And we have to do our best through grit to deter those things. So how then do you cultivate grit in 2026 and beyond? Well, first, you have to have goal setting. I think in my studies, I found that if you have passion and all these things, resilience, that's great. But if you don't tie it to a goal, it tends to not get done or it gets pushed back. And we've all been in those corporate meetings where we kick the can, we just keep kicking it back, delaying it for the next week, the next month. Well, somebody has to eventually reel it in and say, no, we've got to get it done by this specific day, whether that's like January 26th or some other day, you've got to get it done. Another thing is having those positive affirmations. What are you saying to yourself in the morning? What are you saying in your thoughts? What are you saying in your mind? And what needs to change? Do you not like what you're seeing? Do you not like what you're hearing? Well, good news is we do not control all the thoughts that go through our mind, but we can put a stop to the negative things and retrace our minds. There's studies on the beta wave and the gamma rays and things like that, waves that are just a part of our energy, just all over, universal. And it shows that, you can reprogram and you can recalibrate yourself to where you don't have to stay in the low beta thinking and the muck and the mire, but you can actually thrive beyond that. And you can do that with positive affirmations. I am strong. I am wealthy. I am positive. I am successful. I am beautiful. I'm whatever it is that you want to say, you have the power in your hands to do it. And I do talk about some of that as well in many of my works. And I touch on some of this with affirmations within my new book, Stop Surviving and Start Thriving Through Grit. Another thing, of course, is having vision boards. I had a conference at the end of the year where I talked about getting gritty with the new year. I try to have it every year. And a part of that conference is we go over our vision boards. And it's a lot of fun. And we're able to really kind of just crack the code of what it is that we're wanting for our lives, what success looks like. And I think it's so key to really write the vision and make it plain. And then having extrinsic and intrinsic motivation, that is a part of all of us. Intrinsically speaking, I think once you start developing more of a passion for your business, your organization, people you work with, then you won't need as much extrinsic. But if you're trying to build relationships and things like that, then of course, you start with extrinsic and then you can trickle down to, doing more intrinsic things. But all of these things are imperative, in my opinion, for cultivating grit in 2026. Now, how to put grit in action for all leaders. It's imperative that you start with looking at something like the grit framework, which I have here, focusing on the growth mindset, resilience, self-efficacy, and time management. If the QR code doesn't work, don't worry. You can also find it on the website, www.india-white.com, and just look for the grit assessment. You can do whatever category for you. Here, I'm displaying one for teachers, but there's one for leaders. There's one for parents, even nurses, authors, doctors, you name it. There's a grit workbook for you and a grit framework for you as well. So take a moment and take this in. The thing I like about it is you have the categories, the 4 categories, and look at the first one here. We have resilience. It says, I am able to bounce back from setbacks. And then you would measure your levels scaling 1 to 5. What is your level? I know for me, like I might put a 4. Okay, I could bounce back, but it depends what the setback is. Are you dealing with grief? Are you dealing with business? Are you dealing with finances? Are you dealing with family? Depending on, what you're measuring when you're taking this is key. Okay. And so that leads me now to the next part of this presentation, which we spoke about having grit pillars for success. And so I wanted to focus on the growth mindset, resilience, inner confidence, or self-efficacy, and time management. And so with growth mindset, as we boldly affirm that greatness is already within us, our experiences, heritage, and purpose equip us to break ceilings, shatter records, and lead with excellence. Because we know that there's royalty in our DNA, it shows up whenever we dare to believe bigger. So what's wrong with believing for a greater promotion, a bigger business, more business, a greater situation financially for you, whatever it is? And then, of course, resilience. Leadership requires the courage to persevere through adversity. We rise, we adapt, we press forward, no matter the challenge. Resilience is your ability to really bounce back no matter what. You know, I had a couple of resilient moments, especially when my brother passed away, and I had final exams like in 2 weeks from there. It was really tough because literally, like, we had to bury him that Friday, and then the exams were that Monday. And so for me, I had to be resilient with my emotions and, you know, when dealing with grief. I don't know what it is for you. I don't know if it's relationships. I don't know if it's a business decision. I don't know where you're having to find yourself to be resilient. But I want to encourage you and say that you can persevere through adversity. Quitting is not an option. Just take it off the table. Just take I can't off the table, right? Our resilience is our testimony, and it fuels every space we lead. So you're going to have a testimony, but of course, as you've heard many pastors say, it doesn't come without a test. So I want to encourage you as you're striving to be resilient in all facets of life. Now, inner confidence. True leadership begins from within. So by planting seeds of self-belief, affirming our worth, and trusting our abilities, we strengthen our confidence. When we do this, we believe in ourselves, we give others permission to do the same, and then success follows. Now, strengthening your confidence is key because, you know, sometimes you do grow weak and sometimes you do lack that sense of self-efficacy within yourself. But it's imperative to remind yourself of some of the wins that you've had, some of the things that you've done, so that you can continue to move forward in accomplishing those goals and knowing that you have what it takes to win. And then, of course, time management, having the purpose-driven leaders that understand the value of time. When we hold ourselves accountable, we remain focused on our vision, and we steward each moment wisely. Success is intentional, and yes, it does start with how we manage our time, our priorities, and our commitments. So then, how do we harness grit in leaders? First, we have to lead with a growth mindset. We have to embrace the belief that growth is ongoing and success is developed, not inherited. We must get rid of anything that would try to make us feel like we can't move forward. Okay, so again, replacing I can't with I'm learning how. Documenting leadership lessons gained from every challenge. You know, this reminds me of, when I was a younger scholar and I was striving for scholarships. And I remember there was a Bill Gates scholarship and it was like 25 pages. And I remember just saying, I can't do it. I have so much going on. I don't want to do it. I just can't do this. I can't get this one. I can get the 4 little ones over here, but I can't get the full ride over there because it was just too much. And I remembered, God bless her, but a late mentor of mine, and she rebuked me and she said, never say I can't. I don't want to hear you say it again. Stop saying it. It's not allowed around me. And she made me sit down and fill out that 25-page application. And I was able to obtain that Bill Gates scholarship because she helped my mindset to go from saying I can't to saying I can. I just have to figure out how. And I think that, no matter what your problem is, you have to sit down in your life, get quiet, meditate. There's so much power in meditation. I really think people should get back to that. We have to get quiet. Sometimes our mind, there's like all these spaghetti thoughts. There's like so much going on and you can't really process what's going on. And so you're operating at lower wavelengths. So you got to bring yourself up. And so I think that, getting quiet, meditating and figuring out what it is that you're wanting in life. If you're in a relationship and it's not exactly what you're wanting, why? What can you do to change it? Sit down, meditate, and see what can you do to fix this. There is a solution. There is a solution. Now, the last thing you want to do, of course, is, get out of a relationship or out of a company or something like that. But do what you can to resolve, with what you have, and then move forward. So I want to encourage you with that, to never say, I can't fix this or this can't be done, but to know that, yes, there are solutions, there are ways to get it done, and you are the perfect person to help make it happen. So with that said, I do want to continue sharing my screen. And so we're going to continue this presentation as we're talking about thriving through grit, and we're talking about how we could stop surviving and start thriving. And so that makes me think about, how can we harness grit in leaders? So first off, we have to strengthen resilience through adversity. Resilient leaders, they don't avoid hardship, but they rise through it. Women leaders, they often balance multiple roles, expectations, and pressures, which makes resilience essential. So harnessing grit, it means standing firm, pivoting when necessary, and continuing forward with purpose. So what can you do? I want you to think about some action tips, okay? So first things first, choose to reflect on obstacles that you've overcome. Use them as evidence that you are equipped to endure what's ahead, okay? 2, build inner confidence intentionally. Build that self-efficacy, okay? Because that confidence, that self-efficacy, it grows whenever you affirm your voice, you honor your achievements. See, there's nothing wrong with patting yourself on the back. No, you don't have to be a narcissist, but yes, you can honor your achievements. And then, of course, silencing that self-doubt. Okay. Women leaders especially must learn how to own their expertise without apology, because grit flourishes when confidence is cultivated daily. Okay. So an action tip here for you is start each day by naming one strength that you bring to your leadership role, to your corporate organization, your business, and one win, whether it's big or small, from the previous day. Now, I want to talk with you about how you can harness grit as a woman or as a leader, and how to harness it in each other. So first things first, mastering that time management with purpose, because leadership, it is a tool, and time is that leadership tool. Gritty leaders have to prioritize what aligns with their vision and eliminate distractions that drain any energy. Because purposeful timeful management, it allows leaders to remain focused, balanced, and effective. And yes, you can do this with respect. An action tip is to schedule non-negotiable time for strategic thinking, rest, and personal growth. I'm guilty of not resting and not doing more personal growth, but it's okay, because we can always start somewhere. But I want to encourage you, definitely looking at that rest. Yes, we do need 8 hours of sleep, even though we convince ourselves we only need 3 or 5, we do need 8. Okay, we need to also protect our time fiercely as you're protecting your goals. Okay. Now, the next tip for you is to set clear goals and hold yourself accountable, because grit requires clarity. Leaders have to know why, okay, in order to remain focused whenever challenges arise. Okay, so accountability actually ensures consistency, discipline, and progress toward long-term success. So what can you do here? You can break major goals into measurable steps and assign deadlines. And then, of course, revisiting those and realigning weekly, holding others accountable, making sure everybody's doing this with fidelity. And then, of course, surround yourself with grit-focused support, because no leader thrives alone. You need a community, you need a tribe, you need something. So community strengthens grit by offering encouragement, accountability, and perspective. And women leaders actually grow faster when they connect with others who value their perseverance and purpose. So a tip here would be to build a circle of mentors, peers, collaborators who you challenge, or who would actually challenge you to grow, and they remind you of your capacity whenever doubts arise. So some other strategies that you can use to cultivate grit, including adopting a growth mindset, no longer fixed mindsets, strengthening your resiliency through purpose, building self-efficacy through affirmation and action, and then practicing intentional time management. So with that said, I do have a new book. It's Stop Surviving, Start Thriving. It's a grit framework for leaders. You can scan the QR code there to get a copy of it. And so with that said, I want to now talk about how you can thrive with grit. I came up with an acronym for Thrive. So T stands for time stewardship, managing your time with purpose and intention. That leads us then to having hope-fueled growth, where you're adopting a growth mindset, which is rooted in belief and possibility. And then once you do that, you're going to have that resilient leadership where you're persevering through challenges with strength and grit. Inner confidence, it will help you to lead boldly by trusting your voice and your abilities. That leads you to then having vision-driven action. Action. You have to take action. That's key. Because whenever you have action, that's helping you to align daily actions with long-term goals so that your goals are no longer just sitting on the table, but that you're accomplishing them. I mentioned this before. I was working out and I was like, okay, I want to lose like 30 pounds. And I remembered writing, I'm going to work out today for 15 minutes. I wrote it on a notepad. And guess what? Did I work out that day? No. However, because I made the vision plain, it helped me to start getting the wheels that I needed to make movement. And then I did work out in the future days and actually lost like 35 pounds from a result of being more actionable and having the vision-driven action. And then, of course, E, the last part of our Thrive little acronym here, empowered execution. So taking consistent action through grit, framework, and other endeavors. So I hope that this helps you. So time stewardship, hope-fueled growth, resilient leadership, inner confidence, vision-driven action, and empowered execution is key to thrive. So with that said, in conclusion, make your grit move today and thrive into your purpose. I do have also a grit course, Stop Surviving and Start Thriving, a grit framework for leaders, a course, a 6-week course for you. You can scan the QR code and get that course. This will help you as you're on your journey. And yes, the course is aligned with the book, where you're really able to kind of just trace what is grit in your life? What does it look like? How is your grit doing? What's stalling your grit? What's propelling your grit? And how to get more of the latter. So I hope that all of these tools will be able to help you guys as you are thriving through grit and moving into your purpose. And I'm so grateful to connect with each of you. Thank you so much for listening. Here's another QR code. You can scan that. That will give you information on just basically give me information on how you enjoyed the session. I appreciate the survey. And you can email me at india.white.123@gmail.com. You can also visit my website, www.india-white.com. If you're wanting more resources, you want to schedule a booking with me, be more than glad to work with you. And then, of course, Instagram, Indy238. LinkedIn is The India White. Facebook is Miss India White. Twitter is Indy Speak and Teach. And I'm even on TikTok, Dr. India White, and even on Blue Sky as well. So with that said, find me on one of those locations. Send me a DM. Let me know how we can work together. Send me an email. I'm here for you. And again, thanks so much for everyone for the support and the opportunity to be a speaker and to share with you guys these wonderful nuggets on how we can have resilience beyond measure.